the exact same degradation if he had an OnlyFans. And they're like, oh, this guy used to do like feet milling. I don't know what the fuck they do. But, you know, and that was sent to an employer. How would that, like, you know...
Well, the perception...
Wait, hold on. How would that, like, unequally affect the man in a negative way the same way it would affect the woman in a negative way? Because using that as an example to prove that men are using the patriarchy to keep women down. So that example doesn't hold up because it holds up to both sides of the sexes.
Well, generally speaking, when a man sleeps around a lot, and we can even go to Fresh and Fit, we can go to all these other red pill spaces, they are claimed to be high-value men. Like, they are claimed to be, like, these men who are, you know, like, all the men want to be like them. Like, oh, you should continue sleeping around. Look at all these strategies. I am very appreciative that right now that this space doesn't agree with that. But the truth of the matter is that in all these other spaces promoting the red pill, they say the complete opposite. They say men should sleep around a lot.
There's no sense. So you're trying to say, like, a guy could be like, hey, I want to be a doctor, and let me show you these 30 fucking sluts from Miami I fucked. And that's not going to benefit
I'm like so charismatic and so influential. I can convince like 30 women to sleep with me.
Are you saying that matriarchy would be better? Are you
that
saying
even make any sense?
Are you
acting like
wait.
I think the gist of what she's saying is that there tends to be greater social repercussions for women that have engaged in sexuality openly.
If you take an OnlyFans to your job application, like, look, I want to be this fucking X-ray tech, but I also sucked like 30 dudes' dicks.
No, maybe 10 years ago, but we're neglecting that the people who staff HR departments are overwhelmingly like these girl boss types.
This is an anecdote, but I watched a documentary called Life After Porn, and they analyzed the differences between male porn stars and talent after they left the industry and female porn stars after they left the industry. And the women, overwhelmingly in that documentary, were socially ostracized and ended up getting back into the industry, whereas the men were able to...
I would argue that's not actually unfair, because there are objective
I never said it was unfair. I'm literally
just
saying that was the case, and that was what the documentary showed.
all you have to...
hold on. Yo, hold on. So, I mean, but if you look at most adult content, oftentimes there's always a female name, but half the time you don't even see the male, you don't know the male actor.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's differences on that level, but I would suspect, going back to your point, I would suspect if, you know, you take two people, a woman, a man, they both did adult content, they're trying to get a job, I think it's going to kind of reflect poorly on both of them if it's like a job that requires some sort of decorum or seriousness.
I understand what you're saying, and you're basically saying, oh, there's a general stigma against sex work, which is true.
But is that even the best? That's the one example you go to when I'm asking about the patriarchy.
We're asking how the patriarchy
is...
God, I wish they would freaking yell.
Those are bad examples.
Can I take a step of this? Okay. I think when people talk about the patriarchy, in the broadest of sense, what we're really saying is that, historically speaking, men have kind of been granted all of the autonomy in directing society, and women are, even though in some ways they're benefiting from the patriarchy, they're kind of like the subjects of men. So men exist to make decisions financially. They're the leaders of business. They're the leaders of banks. Men exist to make decisions about wars and the state of the country. They're the head of the political systems. They're our presidents. They're our congressmen. And men are the ones making decisions about how women live their lives. They're the head of the household. They're the ones working jobs predominantly, so they're choosing where people live. So when people criticize the patriarchy, in some ways the patriarchy benefits and hurts men. In some ways the patriarchy benefits and hurts women. But I think what people are generally looking at is the autonomous aspect. That in patriarchy, even if you are benefited and hurt a bit as a man, ultimately, you have a lot of autonomy. You've got a lot of different ways that you can decide to live your life. Some of these come out in good ways, like you can have jobs, you can be single, you can do whatever. Some of these come out in bad ways. You're more likely to join the military or work really shitty jobs. And then same thing with women. There are ways that it can benefit you or hurt you. It can benefit you in that you don't have to work, you can stay home and take care of a kid. It can hurt you in that you're subjugated to a pretty narrow set of roles. But the main issue is that feminists would argue that in a patriarchal system, the man has a much wider range to express his desires and how he wants to exist in the world, whereas women are kind of like, you have to do this one thing, otherwise you're going to be heavily socially or sometimes even legally ostracized for it. I think it's like the broadest argument.
I disagree with you a little bit there on your last point. I think actually if you look at kind of the options that women have, I think they have more options than do men. For example, in terms of partnering up with a woman, I would say men overwhelmingly, you know, women have kind of two choices. They can find a man who's prepared to provide for them. They can be the stay-at-home. Not all women are going to be able to secure that option, but it's there for some women. Or,
to be clear, before you, I'm just saying historically, like today, as society exists today is a lot different than it was in the 1800s, right? I'm just saying historically when we talk about patriarchy, because as it exists today, a lot of what is quote unquote patriarchy is really we're talking about very nuanced social pressures and a little bit of litigation. So maybe around like abortion, but broadly speaking, like a lot of the issues related to women and having freedom in society have been ameliorated. Women can go to school, they can have jobs, they can exist on their own. Like largely speaking, they've got a lot more freedom now than they did even 50 years ago.
Well, sure.
Thanks largely and due to feminists.
Gotcha. And just to bring it back to you guys, I mean, my sense of the patriarchy, it's basically QAnon for feminists, but so it's like a conspiracy theory. But
wait, we got to continue to use the number one weakness of feminism, which is accountability. So you said that men are being lifted up and women are being put under men, and men are having like these gigantic leaps and bounds in today's modern society at the detriment of women.
Giant leaps and bounds. I said
well,
general benefits.
that's what the patriarchy is. It's just like this big phantom boogeyman that's here to oppress all women. So I just wanted you to clarify on your point, because you didn't give an example. Destiny had to jump in. So what's your example? Because you used OnlyFans on a
No, I didn't use
job
OnlyFans. I
on
was
a
trying
job
to
interview.
use this. Okay, first of all, the general point I was trying to make is that if you find out a guy has slept with 30 women, a lot of people see that guy as like a player, as charismatic, etc., etc. If you find out a woman has slept with 30 men,
She's from the streets, or
okay, yeah,
I think
this is a very
but beyond that, I can give you
comes
other
from
examples.
the objective differences between male and female sexuality, not from a cultural stigma that has just been artificially imbued into us. There are objective differences between the decisions that women make in the so-called sexual marketplace and the decisions that men make in it, because women are the gatekeepers of sex.
Okay, can you explain to that? Or I'm genuinely curious. I just want to understand like your logic and your thought process.
But hold on.
Still no example?
Okay. Wait, okay,
hold on. Let me just. I just got to interrupt you really quick.
Still no example? I'm waiting.
I'll give you your
Hold
example.
on. Let me just interrupt you really quick here. I feel fucking terrible having the straw man for a feminist, but like you keep going back to this body count thing. I'm anti-feminist, but I'm familiar with feminist arguments. Like this whole men and women being judged differently because of on their sexuality is like such a low priority for feminists. I'm confused why that's your first thing that you're going to.
I
know it's related to dating.
Were you saying
I mean,
that
you
was
asked for one example. You didn't ask for like.
Were you saying?
Not
all right,
particular
everybody, hold on.
Okay.
Were you saying that was a benefit for men of the patriarchy, that men are able to sexually take advantage of women?
Yes, but also the reason why I brought that up is because since you guys kept repeating like this is a dating podcast, like relationships, that was one of the first things that my mind went to. But I do have other examples of like patriarchal like structures.
Before we get to that, I find this very, very fascinating. So, are you acknowledging that men running through women, that's a bad thing?
Yes, but society as a whole doesn't seem to agree with my opinion.
Doesn't seem to agree with that. And you're saying men running through women, this is one of the negative aspects of patriarchy, and it's one of the things that men benefit from when it comes to patriarchy. Is that correct? Would you say? Framing?
Society as a whole views that as a benefit to men. Okay,
and is
that's what I'm saying.
Hold on.
I have my personal opinion that's disagreeing with that. But in general, if we're talking about how society generally views a patriarchy, how society generally views women and men, society generally will prop up a man if he engages in that behavior.
Is that because of patriarchy, you're saying?
I do think that's an extension of patriarchy. This idea that like men are more capable, that men are, like stronger, and therefore like those actions are supposed to indicate like strength.
I have one thing really quick.
I'm trying to make a point.
What?
He's trying to make a point, goddammit. Let him make his point.
I've listened.
He's put his mic on the
listened
table,
for
he's leaning
20
forward.
minutes.
One thing.
I've listened for 20 minutes. Please
Just
go
one
ahead.
thing.
Oh my god.
Is the patriarchy stronger now, or was it stronger, say, 100 years ago?
Oh, it was stronger 100 years ago. I think we've made great advancements.
And so you're blaming, but the patriarchy was stronger, say, 100 years ago, but now in today's day and age, when it's ostensibly the weakest it's ever been, how can you pin?
So this is Brian. Let me take
where
it from here. This is kind of he's leading to my point. Okay, you and I both agree that men running through women is detrimental to our society. Correct?
Yes.
The argument that I would make is in years past, when there were stronger patriarchal structures over society, there were decreased rates of men running through women because we had greater amounts of tradition in society. This whole sexual liberation thing that is intimately tied into feminism, I would say that feminism is largely to blame for so many women in our society getting run through. Because earlier in the conversation, Destiny was making the point that nowadays we live in a society where a lot of women, both liberal and conservative alike, they want to go and build their careers, and they want to go and enjoy their lives, and a big part of that enjoyment of their lives involves being sexually free in their 20s. That thing that you dislike, that is a fruit of feminism.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things historically that patriarchy protected against, because traditionally speaking, it was a father's job to protect his daughter's virginity and her purity and all that kind of stuff. That's a good thing for society. This sexual liberation stuff that's burning women is a fruit of feminism.
Yeah, that's a very, sorry, let me just respond to that quickly.
All right.
That's a very interesting point. However, when I look at historically examples of like what has happened between men and women's relationships, you still have structures of the patriarchy that still incentivize like men to like either sleep around or not face negative repercussions necessarily for sleeping around, until the advent of feminism also tried to help fight against that. So
That was
let
at
me
the
just
absolute
finish.
top of society, though, and a
Wait,
very
wait,
small
wait,
amount
wait.
of men. It was nowhere near like it is today.
Okay, but the idea that like, oh, if a man cheats on you, it's the woman's fault. She was not a good enough wife. She was not like good enough, whatever. Existed for decades, right? This idea that like, oh,
The guy that's in there making the most sense with the hot ass girlfriend sitting next to him. That's Destiny with the blue hair.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was frowned
More
upon
than
for
it is now.
everyone, but women before the advent of feminism weren't able to break away from those from that.
I just
Basically.
wanted to say
they
that-
were stuck in.
Let her
these-
finish your
yeah.
point, please,
Okay,
Nev.
yeah, sorry.
They were stuck in these cycles where it was like, okay, my husband cheats on me, or my husband leaves me. He's an alcoholic. He's doing all this. Well, because there's no fault divorce, I'm stuck with him. I have to take this abuse. He could be physically abusive.
But those were situations with fault for divorce. That was grounds for divorce, abuse,
Yeah,
alcoholism.
but even
cheating.
then, the
Even
idea
the
that
Catholic
you have
Church
to-
sees cheating as grounds for divorce.
Even
So
then,
you
the
have-
idea that you have to go through this whole court process to prove that your husband actually did this stuff to you and that you didn't deserve it, right? Because those were the thoughts back in the day, that if your husband does anything to you, well, it's your fault because you weren't a good enough wife, you weren't a good enough mother, whatever. Did stop women from being able to be liberated or be able to get the rights that they deserved.
Kind of like what men have to go through nowadays with false rape accusations and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, nowadays the reasons for
Grape.
divorce aren't the things you've listed. It's literally just
Grape
men being
accusations.
Like, I
Grape.
feel vaguely
Grape.
unfulfilled
Sorry.
in
Sorry.
this relationship.
Can I just say, I think that you are actively
It's a great point, John.
perpetuating the patriarchy that you're cursing and blaming everything on by endorsing like OnlyFans and stuff, by saying
When did I ever endorse
well
OnlyFans?
just by like promoting the stuff like
When did I promote it?
earlier.
When did I
Do
promote
it.
it earlier?
You started bringing OnlyFans into things as if like people
No,
wouldn't judge you
I
for
said.
it.
Well, I said like, yeah, women are judged for having OnlyFans. I
That
didn't
was
say
the most
OnlyFans is
niche
good.
example ever.
Should
Like,
women not
wait,
be
no.
judged for
Yeah, I think
OnlyFans?
To be fair, false rape accusations is a very niche example. Too.
I think you're
fair
perpetuating.
play, fair play.
No.
But I mean, come on, Destiny, come
Also,
on.
you're
Hey,
strong
hey, hey,
men.
hey,
OnlyFans
everybody,
in a job interview.
everybody, for the sake of Brian's channel, if we're going to talk about SA, let's use the word grape, okay?
So
That's
for
okay.
SA though, Destiny, come on, pulling up like, oh, we see you may have had an OnlyFans account.
No, but
That's
you're
a pretty-
strawmanning me. I used
Hey, that was
OnlyFans
my
as an
example.
example, but what I was trying to elaborate, or what
It's
I
so
was trying
bad
to
Destiny doesn't
illustrate,
defend
is
you.
that even without OnlyFans, if you find out, or a rumor or whatever, that a woman has slept around with 30 men, they're gonna look down on that woman. Forget
See,
OnlyFans, forget
naturally,
anything
Rightfully
else.
It's
so.
more
Rightfully
feminist
so.
to hold women accountable for their actions and believe that they have full agency over their sexuality and hold them accountable when they've done things unwise with their sexuality.
And as a
That's the more
feminist-
feminist option
the
than
bell
considering them to be just tiny, like
audio
angel babies who
No, and
deserve
as
to
a-
be defended no matter what they do.
And as a feminist, I agree, but I also think we should hold men accountable for these actions
who
as
do you,
well.
Who do you
But
think?
you
You seem
Come
to
in,
think
Billy,
that women
Billy,
shouldn't
come in.
be judged for
Hold on.
having an
Let's let
OnlyFans.
Billy
I,
go.
what? Sorry, can you repeat that?
You seem to think that women should not be judged for choosing to do porn.
I think it depends on the circumstance.
There is
Absolutely.
no circumstance
Okay.
where it's acceptable.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
hold
but
on.
there are
Hold
so
on,
many
hold on,
women
hold
who
on.
get into sex trafficking who start
Okay, that is
OnlyFans
not-
because they get the,
That is
abusive.
not the example that you gave us. You gave
Well,
us the
I was-
example of a woman
okay.
with OnlyFans.
No, I was giving a general example of like, oh, the idea of when women are judged more harshly.
Women-
But if you want, I'm gonna elaborate now, or I'm gonna clarify
Okay.
now. That's just an example, right? There are. You asked, oh, you think women should never be judged for OnlyFans? I never said that. I do think that there are certain scenarios where they
How
shouldn't
about
be
all
judged as
scenarios?
harshly.
Okay, all right,
How about
hold
all
on.
scenarios
For
So
the
if you-
sake of conversation, let's
bring Billy
with all
into
due
it.
respect,
So, AIDS.
we could go around and around and around with this, but you have like kind of like every single answer you give, it's kind of qualified. Like in some cases this, but in other cases
Because life
that.
is
It's
not
almost
black
like
and
it's a
white.
nuanced discussion that's not going
Yeah,
to
I mean, you
trend
could,
towards
you can,
yes/no answers.
you can make every single thing nuanced is the point, but it's not fruitful for the overall
I think
discussion.
something that's
want to hear.
interesting- something
I
that's
want to
interesting-
hear. I want to hear what
wait,
Billy,
wait, wait.
Billy was
Let's let
waiting
Billy
to jump
come
in.
in.
I just have a question. As feminists, who do you think is more at a disadvantage or more discriminated against in today's society, men or women?
Hey, Nev, move your mic.
You're gonna hate me for responding this, but what metric are you using? Like, what are you saying? Like, no, you guys are acting like I'm crazy.
No, I'm
and I
not.
understand
It's
the
just-
frustration.
We're not acting. You
You're
are
at a
crazy.
You are thinking with emotions right now. Just
Wait,
say
did you
your
even
I'm not
answer
acting-
her question?
I'm
Did
not
she
trying to
Billy,
disrespect
did
you.
she
or act
answer
like
the
you're
question?
crazy. It's just whenever you answer a question, it's like every single thing has a million shades of gray, and I don't look at the world that way, and I think it overcomplicates literally everything.
So you're saying you look at the world in like simplistic black and white paradigms. You don't ever try to look at the shades of
I mean,
gray that exist
I'm the kind of
between?
person I believe in like objective truth, and like when it comes to the gender discussion, for example, I asked what is a woman, and it's like somebody who's born with an XX or XY chromosome. Like to me, a lot of things like that are very black and white, and I know that in some small instances there's shades of gray, but it's like when questions are directed.
I mean, when we were
towards this
talking
corner-
earlier about
when
like
questions are
essay and
directed-
bathrooms, we were
Yo,
like
let him
very
finish. Let him
interested.
finish. Let him finish.
When questions are directed to this side of the panel, with all due respect, it devolves into this like million shades of gray for literally everything, and the conversation, I feel like it's not fruitful for conversation. Is my
So
point.
where during the job interview process do they ask you to bring up your OnlyFans history? Is it like the hiring manager? Is it the HR?
Is this the level of discourse
where-
that we're on?
Where at what point during the client interaction
There are
does that
background
happen?
checks that include your internet history, and if you choose to do OnlyFans, that's in your internet footprint forever. That is a choice that you made. That's the example that you brought up, and in your belief as a feminist, women have full agency over their sexuality since they've been liberated. It's only fair then to hold them accountable for making a decision.
Can I
like
say,
that.
OnlyFans aside, I personally would not advocate for employers to go looking to see how qualified the candidates are by the first thing that they're searching up after they see the name on the resume. Let's see if they have an OnlyFans
It
account.
comes up pretty quickly
And
when you look
wouldn't
at
just
somebody's
be, it wouldn't just be
background on
that
the
as part of their history any more than I think it's relevant for an employer to be like, let's look through their Facebook, let's look through their Twitter, through their
Those
YouTube.
things are
whatever
relevant.
they
Sex
do.
work is
So
more
when they-
relevant
like,
than
flex
that.
back on the company, though.
Every employer is allowed to freely associate with who they want, but I would criticize any business person who thinks that it's prudent to spend their time scanning through candidates like Instagram and
Through
social
their
media
internet
thing.
history?
Well, yeah.
So
that
wait,
is
wait, wait.
extreme.
Yeah,
So
I think
then-
what's
You
more
don't
relevant
think
is
it's
their
prudent for
credentials and their
employers?
resume.
You don't
Wait,
think
time
it's
out.
prudent for employers to care about whether or not one of their employees has OnlyFans?
Yeah, I think you're
That's
just-
not prudent.
Wait, hold on.
Like,
If
if
it-
I'm
It
hired-
can
if
be
I'm-
prudent
if I'm a
depending on
CEO,
what the
Chase,
job
if I'm a
is, but
CEO
generally speaking, I don't think it's prudent or like a
Wait,
fruitful
Chase,
use
Chase,
of
if
an
I'm-
employer's
let me
time
make
to
this
like
point real quick.
specifically comb through their prospective like applicants' internet history.
Okay,
in that way.
internet history and OnlyFans are two different things. okay?
OnlyFans can be part of your internet.
So-
Okay,
the
so
numbers
if I'm a
shouldn't
CEO
aside, they
and I'm
do.
hiring somebody, let's say I'm hiring a salesperson to close high-ticket deals, and they're talking with important people on a daily basis, and I'm
Right.
sending that salesperson to go speak with these people, and if any of those people that they speak to look up that person's name and they find pornography of them all over the internet, obviously they're going to take me and my company far less seriously if I have somebody working like that for me.
Oh, big deal.
How
And
can you
your-
say
your
that that's not
response is just
important?
Like,
Oh
oh, well,
my
they
God.
shouldn't.
Yeah,
they
that-
shouldn't.
No,
think
I
that
said
that
every employer and
is
business
bad.
owner
Yeah,
is
that-
allowed to
and it's
freely
like-
associate and hire whoever they think so. If they really think that that's at odds with their company's profits, then
And that's-
don't hire that
okay, and that's
candidate.
how
But
you
I
end
would
up-
be very suspect as to whether or not that's actually
So
the case.
then
I
wait a
have no
minute,
idea
wait,
what
wait,
the
wait.
process-
If
It may
this-
very well be the case that the
if
scenario that
this-
you're describing does happen, and if that's the case, then I wouldn't expect an employer to act any other way.
So, okay, cool, great. So if this is not a relevant point, then why did she bring this up as a relevant point?
I like how almost every other person in the panel understood what I was saying and maybe disagreed with what I was saying, but at least understood it versus you, who keep saying like, "Oh no, you think a person like should like hire OnlyFans," when it's like, "Hey, no." Like what I'm trying to say is that there are different standards for men
check.
and women when it comes to like sex. That's all I was trying to say, and yet you
Should
keep
there
trying
not
to
be
strong.
different standards for people who are different?
No,
But
that's
do you
Men
that's
and
a
women
good
are
question.
different,
I'm
so
sorry.
they are held to different standards because
Yeah.
of the objective differences between male and female sexuality.
Bingo.
Yeah, and we
What
can
would you say
have
to that?
we can
Bingo.
have this conversation right now. I just want to point out that I appreciate you guys actually bringing that to conversation than trying to straw man me over and over
They're
again.
abusers.
So
we
what would your
straw man?
response be to that?
with two different. So just
Women
to make
and men
sure.
are treated differently because of the objective differences between men and women, especially in regards to their sexuality.
How is the patriarchy holding women down? I'm still waiting.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you
let's
not
come back to that.
Yeah,
Okay,
why are
let
we
me
using
hold
the
on?
word
Let me
patriarchy
redirect.
like it's a
Let me
bad
redirect the
word?
How is it
conversation.
holding
Based
down?
word.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it hasn't been
So,
like
hold on,
holding
let- I
society
got a
together.
Men
couple
invented
questions.
OnlyFans.
I did want to hear Pixie's
Hold on.
response to that.
Hold on. I got a couple questions here. Let me try to get through them, and we'll have a little back and forth. Okay, so under the patriarchy, are women oppressed?
Yes.
Are men the oppressors?
They're not only.
Jesus fuck.
Don't use the words
I'll come back.
donated $300. Those two feminists are so far gone. Life has consequences. It's called reality. And you two need a clear dose of it. Employers want morally sound employees. News flash doing of /sex isn't moral. Also, can you two form a valid argument instead of rambling?
Thank you, Bads EXE. I think that's
Wait, can I
Victor.
respond to the donor real quick?
Yeah.
I think something that's
$300.
interesting to me is that, like, I think that there is a valid conversation to be had about doing employment background checks. However, not hiring somebody because they do OnlyFans. You could argue that, hey, I think the corporation should take a stand and say we don't police our individual employees' backgrounds. Now, you can say that's unreasonable. However, when corporations turn that same lens and they get very woke about employees, you conservative people get really upset about that. For instance, if 10 years ago you tweeted shit about being a Nazi or whatever, or you tweeted edgy jokes, you guys would stand up and you go, hold on, corporations shouldn't be holding employees accountable for stuff they said on their Twitter 10 years ago. But it sounds like if somebody found an OnlyFans you did 10 years ago, you'd be saying, well, it's totally fair game to make it so that that person can't work at that
Yeah,
company.
doing OnlyFans
I
is
didn't
worse
say-
than
wait,
seeing
wait,
offensive
that's not a
stuff
fair-
on
that's
Twitter.
not a fair
Okay,
argument.
one at a time. Let's go. Because
Okay, let me just say mine real quick
People
because
are
it's
getting
easy.
fired from their jobs for saying something is gay on Twitter 10 years ago, or
Sure.
like
Yeah.
making
Which-
making
but
a
the reason-
mildly
but hold on,
homophobic
but hold on,
joke.
but we said
That's
earlier-
a totally different thing than like espousing National Socialism.
No,
or
it's
something.
actually totally not. Because what if it is the case that your salesman is doing business with another company, and let's say that the person that they're interfacing with is gay, they find out that your salesperson tweeted homophobic stuff 10 years ago, and now you've got like a blue chip company that doesn't want to do business with you because you hire people that have been homophobic. They could use the exact same argument that you use about not hiring the OnlyFans people. Now, hold on. To be clear, I'm not saying that we should fire all those people. I'm just saying that back in my day, okay, we didn't fucking peruse all the online history of everybody to decide who gets hired or who's not. I think that if you're not on the clock, then the fucking employer shouldn't have anything to do with your shit. But it is interesting that we're very selective about what we want policed in a person's history.
And that's how you.
This
end up
goes
working at
back to the
Starbucks the rest
original
of your
point
life.
that I was making earlier in the conversation about homosexuality contributes to the degeneracy of society. I want to live in a society where you can joke about something being gay online.
Sure,
and
but
you
it
can't
could
get
be a
fired for it.
come on. I'm saying gay, but it could be like a racist joke. It could be a bigoted joke. It could be a whatever edgy joke. It could be any type of thing, right?
Is
Or it
that
could be
TOS? Is it TOS?
what?
To say that homosexuality is that TOS?
I don't know, but your podcast is going.
We're in
down tonight,
California, don't
okay?
worry.
Just tell us when the stream goes down and move the rumble.
Sure. Okay.
Hold on. I think that broadly speaking, I think we should probably say corporations. We need to stop this culture of corporations digging into employment history just because like people on Twitter get really mad that like this guy did this thing 5 or 10 years ago. Whether it's like making a sexist joke or doing OnlyFans.
Okay.
That would be my personal.
Fair
opinion.
enough. We got to move away from that. I want to bring it back to you guys. Okay, so feminists posit that women are oppressed. You said yes. Do you think women are oppressed
I do believe women are oppressed. Yes.
here in the U.S.?
Yes. Although
Say
I
it.
think
Say
I
it.
had
First
we had
straight
different-
answer we got all
had
night.
Different definitions of patriarchy, because I would say that patriarchy broadly refers to the state of the world. I'm really not interested in saying like blaming specific actors or genders or sexes and this is like no, I think that's completely counterproductive. I think you can analyze the world through by analyzing the patriarchy, seeing the detrimental effects of that, and if you see an issue, you can address it. I
Okay,
don't think we need
that's
to get
fine.
into this
That's
blame
fine.
game.
Okay,
Where
hold
are
on,
the
hold on,
positive
hold on.
aspects of patriarchy weigh into this conversation?
okay, let
'Cause
me-
they're
please-
I know John
Please-
Doyle's ready to sound off on that, but
monumental.
let's
Monumental.
stay here for a moment.
Didn't men create OnlyFans for these women to be angry
Brian,
about?
do you have a point you're trying to make?
Exactly.
Hey guys,
Okay, hold on.
everybody,
business.
everybody,
Please.
Oh my god.
pause.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Let's
Okay.
maintain this.
Losing control.
Please, I have just like a little back and forth. I want to have a little back and forth on this. Please allow me to just get through it. Okay. Are men the oppressors?
Men and women are the oppressors. Why are you laughing? It's true. You don't think women hate?
Are men the oppressors? Because if women are the oppressed, certainly then men must be the oppressors. Is that true?
No, I don't. I think it's too complicated to
Fair
say
enough.
one gender
Okay.
or the other.
But so you both agreed that women are oppressed.
Yes.
By themselves.
You're women. Are you oppressed?
Yes, in certain aspects.
Into the mic, please.
Yes.
How are you as a
consider
straight
that
white woman oppressed
Hold
in
on.
America?
Before you answer that, are you oppressed as a woman?
Yes, I would say belonging to the, like, identifying, being a woman, yes, that puts you at a disadvantage socially because of the social biases we've been discussing earlier on the panel.
Do you think that's why no one has asked
Bro,
you out?
Mary,
Hey
shut
guys,
the fuck up.
hey guys, everybody, Brian's trying to get someone.
You're interfering with this clip farming, come on.
Okay. How are you oppressed?
There's been countless and countless times, whether it be in academia, podcast, whatever, where I say something and people say like she's a dumb bitch, or in academia it's more like,
That's
oh,
not an example of your oppression.
well, if people are literally saying that, but then when it comes to a man saying the exact same thing I said, being like, oh, that was actually a very intelligent point, well, then they are degenerating me, or
Are you talking about double standards? Because there's plenty of.
that's a form of oppression. You don't think double standards is a
There's
form
some
of
that
oppression?
benefit men.
Using the
There's
word
some
How are you
oppression
defining
connotes themes
oppression?
of slavery and genocide, and some guy calling you a dumb bitch for accurately.
Oh my
owning
God,
being
a
dumb
form of
bitch, and it's
oppression.
Like, wait a minute, this is literally.
Have you ever hung out in like a Call of Duty, like
shit.
Call of
If you
Duty
don't wanna
2?
get
This is the problem.
Nothing
Online
is
bar.
at a job
You have
because
conversations
whoa,
like
whoa,
this,
whoa.
and you participate in conversations like this, and then feminists will literally think to themselves, why has every major religion in society imposed like borderline draconian rules on our behavior? And it's like, maybe this lends some credibility to that thing. I mean, women don't aspire to agency. This is the problem with women are oppressed. Can women be oppressed if they're not like tied down somewhere? You guys don't aspire to agency the way that men do. You are not fundamentally trying to lead, trying to do things like that. You think you are because you respond to the media and to society
my
putting that idea
God.
in your head. But if that were not the case, you go back
I think
to
Brian
like, the
wants you to
21st
end your little
century.
soy rant.
No, it's fine.
I was enjoying
Literally
it.
everything-
That rant was
Everything
so
you have
free.
said,
Your little soy rant, that was fucking hilarious. She just owned his ass.
arguments people have used against black people in like the 60s.
Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god.
Oh, black people, no! Not the black people!
Holy
Shut the fuck
shit.
up. Shut the fuck up.
Okay,
Shut the fuck
hold
up.
on. If you're gonna tell me to shut the fuck up, actually say something
Okay, yeah, I'm
afterwards.
gonna say
Otherwise,
something
you look
afterwards.
empty.
You've been yelling this entire time, so I haven't been able to say anything afterwards. You're not gonna sit here and fucking say that you being a whore is anywhere near the oppression that other groups, like black people or whatever, have faced.
You are the point.
No,
went
you're
over
saying
your
they're
head.
calling me a dumb bitch. I'm so
No,
oppressed.
I'm
If you
saying
wanna get
he's
called a dumb
saying.
bitch, then don't act like a dumb bitch. And
Okay.
don't fucking
John made it
say
seem
that I
like
have
he
anything
went
to
to
do
you.
No,
with
what
it.
I'm saying,
Right.
first of all, you guys took my point, completely fucking twisted it.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing like oppression Olympics here.
Oh, no,
No,
but she's
But-
the point that I was trying to make
What about
is
the black
that
people?
No,
What about
okay.
the black
point that I was
people?
trying to make is that people look at my gender and have limited my opportunities when it comes to like, let's say, careers.
Look
or
at
when it
your
comes to
retardation.
academia.
Billy, go ahead.
No, they don't.
Into the mic.
They
Into the
don't have
mic.
your
You have a
retardation.
greater advantage being a woman today. Do you? I think.
Into the mic.
Sorry. I think we should list. I think if we asked men and women at this table to list off how they're oppressed in today's society, then men could come up with a much bigger list.
I got
Yeah.
one.
Oh, God.
I
got
guarantee
one.
not
I
a
got one.
single woman has done any landscaping in the
So
hot
Brian, you
sun
think
to
that you're
survive
like
on this
men are
panel.
oppressed, and you would say you're oppressed.
Absolutely.
That's oppression.
I
Absolutely.
think. Well, I
By
think
women.
if we're gonna play the oppression game, men.
I don't want to
want
play that game. If you want to play that game, I
Well, I'm
guess we can
prepared
get
to play
into
it.
Let's play it.
Yeah.
Men are more oppressed than women,
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and in fact, and not only today, but historically too.
In some ways, sure. Like if you want to
Can you
talk about like
Men
male
are scared to even
disposability-
speak to women.
If you want to talk about male
Women are scared to
disposability,
speak to
men
men.
having
No,
like
that have to do with
climbing rates of
anything.
like suicide, I'm gonna be with you.
What percentage
On
of
those, I won't even disagree with you.
what percentage of people that are homeless are men?
Probably the majority, no?
3 and 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Where does the
negative
matriarchy fit
outcomes-
into that oppression? Is that like?
Well, that's a really simple one. How long do you think a homeless woman would make it?
I think
She's more
that
likely
women,
to get
I agree
into,
with you, but I
what's
think a
it
lot of women will rather
trafficking?
go end up on their back than end up on the streets.
That would rather what?
End up on their back.
What a fucking idiot. Oh my god. Dude,
That we ask in terms
I'm
of
about over with this shit. You guys got anything you want to add? Are you enjoying this?
Patriarchy arguably oppresses and raises up both men and women in different ways, right? But when we ask questions like, well, who's more homeless? Men can survive being homeless because we have a lot of biological advantages and because we're not subject to violence from other men in the same types of ways that women are, right?
Right.
For instance, when women talk about, or when red pillars say, you need a man to protect you, Protection from who? From other men, right? Because that's typically the people that are abusing or violating other women. So
Fair
when you ask
play.
that question, who's more likely to be homeless? It's probably going to be men, of course. It's like 98%.
So-
But women are going to make it homeless.
Fair
before
point, but I
men.
want to add on to that because
Sure.
she's saying that the patriarchy, disproportionately affects women in a negative way, and it doesn't affect men in a negative way. But then where does homelessness come into play?
So the reason why I don't like to use negative is because patriarchy is just like
I don't go based off of her
Sure,
example.
I
That's what I'm
understand.
saying.
Patriarchy is like a way that society is structured. It's enforced by everybody because in some ways men and women benefit from it. In some ways men and women hurt from it. But there are the way that we suffer under it, arguably, is subjective in whether or not it's good or bad. So, for instance, like I imagine on this side of the table, people would say that women being relegated to relatively narrow roles and how they can participate in the house and society, they consider that a good thing. Feminists traditionally would say, well, women being relegated to narrow roles in the house would be a bad thing. Right? So it's hard to say that, like, is patriarchy good or bad? It's just like a form of organizing society, the same way that a matriarchy would be, the same way egalitarian would be. There's going to be pros and cons to every type of organization. Right? Even patriarchy in some ways is incredibly beneficial to how society is arranged. It makes like figuring out gender roles and households and everything incredibly fucking simple. And it gives really clear guidelines for how men are supposed to act and how women are supposed to act. That's like a benefit. But in some ways it's a negative.
Destiny
and
arguing for patriarchy.
Well,
right
but
now?
in some
Let's
ways
go.
it's a negative because you might have an incredibly talented pool of women that could be contributing to society in really positive ways that are now basically relegated to being barefoot and pregnant in their homes all the time because we don't really want their contributions, right? The reason why I think that our society has succeeded more in the West than it did in any other place in the world is to some extent because we opened the floodgates to allow any type of person to have a conversation. And that's why podcasts like this or Fresh and Fit, you're getting people from fucking that have traveled to Saudi Arabia and Dubai coming back and arguing with black women and Hispanic women and men of all sorts of different backgrounds and religions are all coming together having these conversations. They're not doing that in fucking Saudi Arabia. They're not doing that in fucking Iran. They're not even doing that in a lot of places in Europe. That's happening in the United States of America. And I think it's largely because we've tried to break down a lot of those barriers.
Are you contributing the success of the West to the principle of free speech?
I think
Largely?
that for freedom of
Because-
speech and
because
for
the reason-
unlocking the talent pool that you have of people by not hardcore relegating them to certain roles.
The reason why I ask is because the West was successful relative to other civilizations long before we had free speech and equal rights for everybody.
I mean, the United States was kind of founded on pretty radical principles of free speech and
Yes,
democracy and democratic
yes, it
representation,
was,
right?
but the West existed prior to the United States, and I'm
talking about the real West, okay? The U.S. Fuck Europe, okay?
I mean, if we're talking about
But I'm
the,
just saying,
if we're
you
talking
would
about the
agree-
real
you
West,
would
it's
agree
the
that, like,
West
even
Coast, bro.
For even the people who all love to like love and hate, like people like Elon Musk, this guy came from like South Africa, right? Like there's so much cool shit that happens in the U.S. that only happens in the U.S.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
people come here,
I
and I
agree.
know you guys have argued people come here for the opportunity and stuff. We have a really unique environment here, and I think largely it's because we've tried to push people outside of like the hardcore relegated roles that we feel like they need to be in, which I think benefits all of us. Yeah.
I do have to interrupt because we do need to get a couple of these donations read. So let me redirect this here. We have Doc Vinabili. To Chase's point, the only demographic in the West that is kind of real, I suppose, well, not really, is having births above replacement level is religious household.
Let's go.
Also, even in polygamous households, marriages for the benefit of children. When there is chaos, the children end up in rehab. Doc, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it, man. DJ Takavar. Oh, hold on, that's another one.
Say
Brockton
Proverbs 5
Chase, Proverbs
something.
5. Okay,
What-
thank
what
you,
is
man.
that, a cookie?
It's a. I didn't mean to
A
trigger
heart?
that one.
Handshake?
Handshake.
Oh,
Thank
And
you.
a
Hey,
salute.
thank you, Brock. Appreciate
I'm
it,
waiting
bro.
for this other one. That came in. That just came in right now. So.
Brock, you gave $200. Put the fucking verse next time, okay?
All right, DJ, thank you, Brian. Crazy to see different dynamics of dating today in the 805 from San Luis Obispo. Moved to the U.S. for the Second Amendment rights, though. Chase, Mary, put these maps, what the libtard clowns in their place. Also, Madison is so perfect. Her farts definitely smell like cinnamon. Okay, dude.
Do you guys
Hold on,
support
you guys
maps?
support
Madison?
maps?
No.
Bro.
Disgusting.
Where does this come from then?
Yo, we're not talking
Because
about
it's
that.
the,
Shut
it's
up.
the stereotype.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
Shut up, bro. Oh my
Well,
god.
Okay.
Pull that one back up.
He's doing some
Hold on.
just
disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
When he's done, you can.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
say
Yo, Davon Jackson, thank for the 100. The patriarchy is a society built by men for women and children. It's more convenient for women to raise children to the point that they think they don't need men to do it or opt not to at all. Hey, Davon Jackson, good to see you in the chat, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate the donation. We have this one here from L. Chase, Proverbs 5. I challenge you to read it out loud. Let it shine, my brother in Christ. Billy, you a Proverbs 31 woman. What's your take on blue-haired embodiment of socialist ideology? That's for Billy. Go ahead.
Wait, what's.
You take on blue-haired embodiment of
Proverbs
socialist-
31 woman. I would encourage everybody in the audience to read Proverbs 31. It describes the ideal wife, a woman of noble character and virtue who takes care of her home, takes care of her husband, takes care of her kids, makes sure that the family's name is respected, multiplies the family's investments. her husband will essentially need nothing because of how much she does for him and the family.
Her value is worth more than rubies.
Yes, she
as
is
it says.
a wife. It says a wife of noble character who can find her value is worth far more than rubies, and it's true. It's true.
Madison, any thoughts on the cinnamon
He's
comment?
saying that you are worth far more than rubies, a wife of noble character. What do you think about that?
I think it's actually very true because that's exactly what I want to be. A wife.
Praise the Lord,
and a mother.
PTL.
Okay, we have nobody here. Thank you for the donation, man. Appreciate it. I send you an Insta message on your Brian profile. Destiny wanted to see, or keep it center, by the way, for the Destiny wanted to see me do push-ups in response to my message. I expect him to also do push-ups on live stream. 10 drunk push-ups with no push-downs.
Does that mean no push-downs?
I think it's a gay comment.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. You guys know way more gay lingo than I do. I'm not sure.
Couldn't tell you, man.
Oh man.
And then we had the bad ZXE. That one came through. Let me do a couple from you two. We're pretty
Did you
behind.
read the EXE one?
It was a TTS that I'm pretty sure came through already. It's called Reality. Yeah, that one came through as a TTS. All right, we have.
I want to read Proverbs 5.
Do we just do
Wonder what it
Stifler
says.
really quick? Okay, ask everyone to rate their looks on a scale of 1 to 10 really quick. Destiny, you
10,
first.
obviously.
10.
10, of course. 10.
Oh
I
God.
don't want to answer.
Why not?
Patriarchy.
No,
The page.
Patriarchy.
Please.
I just
We'll
like.
give you a patriarchy 2 buffer.
Just, hold
So
on,
whatever you
hold
say
on,
plus
hold
2.
on, hold on. Let her answer.
I don't know. I feel like to me it's weird when I try to like judge my own looks. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the question.
Are you a 10?
Fine, I'm a 10. Whatever.
Don't let me put words in your mouth.
No, I think like whenever people ask questions like that, it kind of annoys me because I feel like there's so much more to a person.
There
like, how they
is,
look.
of course.
I know. But then
we're
if
just
I
talking
just
about
answer,
looks.
answer the question.
Here we are
Yeah,
going
so
into a million
I'll
shades.
say
I can
10.
answer it for you. I'd
Like,
say
give a
maybe a
straight
4,
answer.
6.
Hello.
I mean, personally,
It's
I
not
think
that
how
hard.
someone looks is like the least interesting thing about them, but that's just me.
But
I
that
realize
wasn't
you
the
do this little
question.
exercise
I know,
on
I'm
every
being
single
soy,
episode,
that's why I
and
was
the
trying
whole
to
point
ask
is that
you.
everybody gives themselves like
What do you
what's
rate
some ridiculous
yourself?
thing.
I haven't
right?
heard that.
We haven't gotten to that side of the table
Yeah,
yet.
I'll
True.
answer
But
it.
you guys usually rate yourself as well.
Of course.
Sometimes,
You
yeah.
say the
Okay.
same number every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have a good day or a bad day?
I
We'll
incorporate
get
that into
to
my
it. We'll get
answer.
to
Okay.
it. So, do you
I'll say 10. Let's continue.
I'm gonna stick with my answer. It's a 6.7.
Nev, go
I'm
ahead.
going to say a 6 for me as well.
John.
Give myself a 7 today because this suit is really good.
I say 7.
I would say a 9. A 10's not real. That's like an abstraction, right? Like assuming a normal distribution.
Is Jesus a
There's an
10?
idea
that's us.
of a rating system.
Okay.
Right. Well, people, I think they misunderstand that. They tend to think that like a 7 is average because they think 7 is 70%. That's like a C. Assuming a normal distribution, this is very important rating women, rating people in general. 5 would be like a perfect average, and then you would see like a bell curve sort of slope from there. So if you're talking about a 7, I mean, that's already like what, top 15%, probably even greater than that. It's very important stuff.
Hey, we over here? We're perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chase, what about you?
7.58
I think
on a
you're a
good
10.
day. Thank you.
So this is not to be weird or anything.
No, I didn't
Too
think
late
it
for
was-
that.
Sorry, I mean,
I
You have
appreciate
a
that.
boyfriend,
Thank you.
don't
Thank
you?
you
I'm
for the
just, well,
compliment.
no, I'm just saying, I see a beautiful man and I'll call him a beautiful man.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Chase.
I think
Appreciate
you
that.
By the way,
Hmm. Yeah, I am.
She has a boyfriend.
okay.
Okay.
I give myself a 6.9 on a good day.
How about with the wig on though?
10.
10. I'm like the mirror opposite of destiny with the wig.
True.
10.
Disagree.
Of course. Yeah, the 10 thing though.
I'm sorry, I kind of fucked on that by answering initially.
It's all good. It's all good. So you object to the whole 10 thing. You said people really shouldn't care much about physical appearance.
It's not. I'm not gonna pretend like people aren't influenced by physical appearance. I just feel like so much of society focuses on that, and it's like, dude, there's
Well, it's
so
extremely
much
it's
more.
extremely important. You have to have
That's-
attraction to
it's-
have a relationship
Yeah.
last.
It's
It's normal.
just a question about how would you rate your physical looks. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's
It's not
fine.
like what's
I'm
your
not
worth
saying
as a
it's,
human being.
It's not important. Obviously, it's important to some. I'm just saying, to me personally, I tend to think how people look is usually the least interesting thing about them. I think there's a lot more to people than just their superficial
Something,
looks.
question,
something
okay?
tells me
Yeah.
you're lying based on the fact that you've never been on a date before.
I
and
think
have
something tells
probably
me you're
rejected-
projecting,
No.
right?
I think you've rejected every dude that's asked you out probably because none of them have been interesting or good looking enough to go out with them.
No.
No.
If I've rejected people, it's literally just been on the basis that I don't think we're compatible. We can still be
You
friends.
haven't even gone on a date with them though. How do you know you're not compatible?
Took
Because
the
I'm not
words
gonna
right
waste
out of my
anybody's
mouth.
time on going on a date with them if I don't feel that initial compatibility or like chemistry there.
I think that's where you're failing. You're not going on dates with people yet you're saying, oh, I'm judging them on compatibility, but you're not actually like
I mean, when you
Time
say
with
the
them.
judgment is not just like occurring out of nowhere.
you're
If
not
they ask
spend-
me if I would like to go on a date with them, if they would just are gonna tell me like come on a date with me, I mean that's different. But like when you ask somebody on a date, you're accepting that they may or
I
may not
think
reject
You are
right?
everything wrong with modern
insinuating?
dating.
Hold on.
I think
hold
you
on,
are
hold on,
everything-
hold on.
I mean, we
Ladies,
already
ladies,
established that I'm
ladies,
not
ladies.
dating, so.
Are you
But you are everything
hold
wrong
on,
with it.
Billy Ray, are you insinuating that if a guy told you come on a date with me, you'd be like, okay?
No. I
You
just
said,
I'd
you
say
said it would be
that's
you said it would be different if a guy said it.
No,
that way.
because she said that you're judging people on the basis of this, and I'm saying if you ask somebody on a date, you're putting yourself out there and you are opening yourself up to rejection.
Would you go on a date with Fresh from the Fresh and Fit podcast?
Would I go on a date with Fresh?
Yes,
Oh
he's a
my-
attractive, attractive
who
man.
wouldn't go on a date with Fresh? Who wouldn't go on a date with Myron? Who wouldn't go on a date with the entire crew at Fresh and Fit? You know?
No, I'm just asking you about Fresh. Is that a yes? Say it to the camera.
To Fresh?
Yeah.
That camera right there.
Wait, are you advocating for?
You're so fucking difficult. I
yes.
think that's your problem.
Yes.
Oh, you just cut me off. Okay.
I'm sorry that I cut you off, but it's just like I've been holding
What
it.
a weirdo, dude. That's just really weird, man. Whatever. Listen, you guys, I'm out of here. I hope you guys had fun. Take care. Thanks for participating. I'll see you in the morning. Bye-bye. I'm at Nays Garden on Twitter. All right. Shouts out to Destiny and at whatever over there on YouTube. Okay. Bye, guys.